first item on the agenda is comments and statements from the public. All right, sure. If you could just go up to the microphone and state your name.
Hi, my name is Sarah Broadbent. I am a mom of a couple of students in the community schools, and I have a concern with what I feel is a lack of communication when there are safety events that occur in and around the school. Obviously, there was an incident on Monday, not during school hours, which I totally understand, where a man was apprehended with weapons. Here, yes? Am I wrong? You're looking at me confused.
Yeah, there was no, first of all, that reporting combined two things that were separate items.
Okay.
On the one, we had an alarm that went off. We believe that the alarm went off because of the wind rattling the doors. We're still trying to figure out what
Okay.
it was. The gentleman who the police apprehended was never on campus.
Okay, that's good to know. So even that, okay, so we have students here and they're being told the same thing we're seeing in the news. And if the school board or whoever is responsible for communication could send out an email when something like that occurs to clarify these things, it would really help us to be able to communicate with our children who are in the school and a little uncomfortable and kind of nervous hearing that this just happened. I didn't know anything about it until my daughter told me, and she was like, "Mom, I'm really uncomfortable." I'm like, "Well, you know, I just looked, I found the news article, the man was arrested," but I mean, without any communication from the school, who knew much more than we did, we have no other information, and it was a little bit concerning. And you know, I have a daughter here that's all that we have to go by because we got nothing from the school. I'm
trying to understand, ma'am, with all due
what don't
respect,
you understand? It was a
that
scary
the-
situation portrayed by the news, and I understand that you're saying that
was, but we were still trying to figure out what was going on. So we didn't even know.
So when did you know that he was never on campus?
When we got the Facebook announcement from the police department.
On Monday.
On Monday, saying that.
And
That's when first of all, we have a school resource officer in 2 of our 3 schools all the time. So
that's
the communication is pretty strong when it comes to that.
not to the parents. We didn't receive any communication from
So
the school to
public
say
com-
that there was no danger.
Public comment should not be a back and forth.
Understood. Yep, I
So,
apologize.
ma'am, if you would like to,
That's all.
you can, no, you can.
It really is just things like that. You know, my daughter I have a daughter in the elementary school who says, "Oh, Mom, the fire department came today. There was a small fire in one of the vents." Like, you know, things like that. I just feel like parents deserve an email just saying, "Hey, this happened. There was no danger. Everyone's good. But just so you all know," and I'm not getting updates about things that I consider potentially a danger to my child from my 10-year-old or my children hearing it from other children who are going to portray it in a much more grand manner that could be much more scary than it needs to be. It was just something that I really think that maybe should be considered moving forward. That's all. I'm not saying that the news thing was correct.
No.
I'm glad that it wasn't, but again, that's all that we in town have to go by is what we're seeing. So
Understood.
it just felt like if somebody had just said, "Hey, actually, just one of the newsletters that we get by email that just said, "Hey, you know, this was not quite how it seemed. There was really never a danger at the school at all." I understand it was before hours anyway, but it really felt like we were in the dark, and that seemed like a very serious situation. So that was really all I had to
I appreciate you
discuss.
sharing.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Appreciate
much.
So we're not properly posted to discuss that item, but I will follow up with administration on that. So thank you for sharing. Okay, the next time, actually, I would request that we take item A of the informational agenda out of order for our student representatives, if the committee is okay with that for our public hearing.
Yes.
Okay, student representatives.
All right, good afternoon, school committee, everyone else in attendance. Just have a very short list of items for this evening. First off, the last parent-teacher conferences for the school year in the middle school were held today from 2:15 to 4:15. The third term will come to an end and marks will close on Monday, April 7th. Unfortunately, MCAS testing for the middle school will begin for grades 7 and 8 on April 8th and 9th. They will begin their testing in ELA. The 5th, 6th, and 7th grade spring dance will be held on Friday, April 11th. Permission slips will be sent home soon. The Middle School Student Council is running a fundraiser for the Forever Paws Animal Shelter in Fall River. I don't have any other information, but I know that it was handed out in homeroom today. The spring sports season is just starting, and tryouts and practices are starting this week for baseball, softball, lacrosse, and tennis. And lastly, just a little shameless plug here, tomorrow night, the sophomore class student council will be holding a bingo night fundraiser. The price is $1 per round, or $20 for all 20 rounds. Join us at 5 o'clock for prizes and more. Thank you.
Well done.
Thank you.
Good evening, Superintendent Aubin, members of the school committee, and all in attendance this evening. I'm going to start off with some important information about events at the school. The last high school parent-teacher conferences, like Ryan said, for the school year will be held tomorrow, March 19th, from 2:15 to 4:15. MCAS testing will start next week for 10th grade students. They will be taking the ELA portion of the MCAS starting on Tuesday, March 25th and Wednesday, March 26th. Congratulations to all the seniors on the ongoing acceptances, college commitments, and decisions that are being made for future plans and careers. The senior dinner will be held on Friday, March 28th at 6 p.m. Seniors have invited staff members who have had a positive influence on their life. Thank you to Mrs. Ruel for organizing this memorable night for our seniors. Attention seniors, graduation yard signs are now for sale, and the cost is $20 or $25, depending on the design you choose. Orders must be placed by Tuesday, April 29th, and emails have been sent out to all seniors with this information. On that email, there's a QR code that you can scan to purchase the signs. Last call for yearbook orders. All yearbooks must be made and purchased by March 31st. There is a link for Life Touch, that's the creator of the yearbooks, that will be sent in the last newsletter, or Mr. Monis, see him for an order. The Westport High School student body would like to extend a warm welcome to all our Japanese exchange students who arrived this past weekend. We will be celebrating these students at the Black and White Semi-Formal Dance this Friday, March 21st. It will be held from 6 to 9 in the Westport High School Gymnasium. The cost is $28 for a student to attend, and all permission slips and payments must be turned in no later than Wednesday, March 19th. Student council news, the senior class is currently holding a Krispy Kreme donut fundraiser to help pay for their senior trip to Six Flags. Donuts are $15 for a dozen and can be ordered through any senior or Mrs. Avila. Orders close on March 28th, and the donuts will be delivered to the high school on April 10th. I would also like to interject here that I am a few donut orders short of getting that, so if anyone would like donuts, feel free to see me. I don't have the form on me right now, though. The Westport Advocates and Rise Room are sponsoring the second annual Jay Naruzo Bowling Fundraiser. It will be held at Holiday Lanes on Sunday, April 13th from 4 to 6 p.m. Teams can pre-register now. The cost is $25 for 2 hours of bowling and shoes. All teams, or all proceeds, go to the Westport High School Special Olympics t-shirts and a scholarship for the Westport High School seniors. If you are a senior, in order to apply for the scholarship, you must attend this event. And lastly, for club news, the Westport Drama Club put on a very successful production of Into the Woods. The students began working on this show in October, and a lot of time and dedication went into putting into this production. A big thank you to Mr. Jared Russell for his endless hours and pouring his heart into this show. Now for sports. The winter sports season has officially wrapped up and ended with tremendous excitement and success. A big congratulations to our boys and girls basketball teams for their deep postseason runs. Also congratulations to the cheerleaders, Mr. Nunes, and the pep band, and all the fans for their amazing support throughout the season. Co-op hockey with Diamond, Durfee, and Westport made it to the MI State tournament this year. However, they lost in the first round to Triton. The spring sports season officially began yesterday with tryouts and practices for high school softball, baseball, tennis, and lacrosse. Good luck to all of our teams, and we can't wait to see what these teams accomplish this spring. Go Wildcats.
Great job.
Thank you very much. Thank you both.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
I will say also, I did have the opportunity to attend both the play and the basketball game, and it was great to see the involvement from the students.
That's incredible.
They did a phenomenal job. Okay, moving back to our agenda item, FY26 education budget public hearings. So I will believe we have to make a motion to open the public hearing. If there's a motion.
I'll make a motion to open the public meeting for the FY '26 education budget public hearing.
I'll second that.
Motion made second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, so we are, this is a hearing on our FY '26 budget. You'll see on the screen includes both the recommended number that this committee approved a few months ago and discussed over the course of the fall, which came in at $24,040,788. Most of that, as we discussed, I'll just briefly give an overview of what that consists of. The majority of that are contractual increases, so that's both of our bargaining units as well as non-union increases, and transportation is also included in there, as well as utility items, maintenance items, custodial, so that's really and technology as well. So that's really the bulk of what was included in our recommended budget over FY '25. The latest number from the select board that we received at their recent meeting was $23,654,943. So the gap has closed a little bit since our last discussion. Some of this will depend on state aid and what other types of aid look like. I know, Mr. Robin, I think you're going to, did you want to touch on that? Or?
Would you prefer I do that right now?
Sure.
Get that out of the way? Yeah, just, again, I wanted to let the committee know that we're going to be going over the budget, obviously. You can see that there's a difference already of, I believe, $116,419. I need the committee to be cognizant of the fact that there are changes at the Department of Education. The Department of Education plays a critical role in grant allocations, in particular Titles 1, 2, and I believe 4. And we have been told by the Massachusetts Association of School Superintendents that you can expect at a minimum a 25% cut in the titles. Just want to make sure that number, I believe, amounts to $118,000. So whatever deficit we're looking at, please bear in mind that depending on what happens with the grants going forward, we may have to go back to the drawing table. And in fact, the district leadership has come together and taken a look at, not that any cuts are good at this point, because clearly they're not, but if we get cut, we need to be prepared. So, I've met with the business manager, the assistant business manager, and we're trying to see, unfortunately, what we would have to, if that cut does come down, let me be clear on this, it is going to impact direct services to students. There's just no getting on. We've cut all the ancillaries, and there's really not much left to cut at this point.
And that estimated figure was from the Association of Superintendents.
It is, yeah. They were saying to plan on a 25% cut. I'm just concerned that with the momentum that's taking place at the federal level with a lot of these cuts, that it could actually be more. So I'm needless to say, not going to be very comfortable until this comes to fruition one way or another. So again, as we discuss the budget, I would really appreciate it if people could just keep in mind that this is right now best case scenario. Right now. So I wish I had better news. I don't. So.
Yeah, I know so again, process-wise, Finance Committee has not approved their recommended number yet, so we're not sure where that'll come in. That should be over the next couple of weeks or so that we'll get a number from the Finance Committee, along with a better picture of the warrant and the recommendations on other items as well. So once that happens and the number goes to town meeting, that number is what we have to make work. So at that point, following town meeting, we will then meet to discuss whether we're in a cut position, and how to make it work, or what it looks like after town meeting. So that will be forthcoming. But for now, are there any comments from the committee on this budget? This is a public hearing, so just want to open it to the committee.
All I know is a lot of work's been done on it to do the best for all the staff, the faculty, everybody here, and I'd like to thank Evan and for all the work he's been doing, teaching all of us as we get ready for our departure. But everybody here has done a phenomenal job. All the way down, so, and it'll be a learning curve for the next people, but I hope that the people in town understand we're doing as much as we can for as little as possible, and they are doing a phenomenal job. The principals and everybody else trying to keep it going.
And I would like to thank Michelle and Melissa for their work on this as well. We know the numbers change a lot, so we're, constantly adapting on as we get new information and new figures from different boards, from state aid, from wherever it may be. So, and also want to thank the building leaders and the department leaders for presenting us with their thoughts on the budget, their recommendations for what this should look like. A lot of work went into this starting back in the fall and having different meetings with departments, and I think we have a responsible, transparent budget in front of us, and I'm hopeful that the town will support it. We'll see what it looks like over the next few weeks, and I want to thank also Ms. Rouse and Ms. Brown and the Finance Committee and Mr. Hartnett for their discussions over the last few weeks on the budget as well, so I just wanted to recognize that. Are there any other comments from the committee?
Just, again, another round of thanks for everybody who has been diligently working on this, and the back and forth I know is exhausting at times. So just to reiterate, the difference is $116,419. So there's still a bit of a difference, to say the least, between what we've got on paper and what is was the latest round from the select board here. And this is after some significant chipping away, I guess, at items, including potential for a sped sub-separate class and a couple other things. So I'm hopeful that the Finance Committee discussions will take into consideration just how much work has been done to chip away already, and hopefully can find a good resting point, I guess, and try to make up this difference as of now. But thanks again to everybody who's been working on this diligently, and I know it's certainly not fun. So thank you.
Thank you. This is also a public hearing, so I'll ask if there are any members of the public that would like to share anything. I see any here for the hearing. Is there anything that business office would like to add on this?
No, we thank the whole school committee for working closely with us and having an open relationship to be able to go through this without feeling, in the leadership, obviously, because, we work very closely with the leadership, the department heads, business office. We're not in the same location, and we still manage to be on the same page and to make this work. So, and we have Laurie Mello. Couldn't ask for more than that, can you?
Okay, is there anything further? So I guess we can leave the hearing open, and we can close the hearing. Except budget committee, yes.
We had it on the agenda for, 15 minutes, or is it been on for 15?
Yeah, we've had 15 minutes at this point.
No. Do you need a motion to close? I'll make a motion to close the FY26 education budget public hearing.
I'll second the motion.
Motion made, second, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Okay, moving back into our informational agenda, we'll go to item D, Superintendent's report. Mr. Robin?
Yeah, that I reported out on the MASS, warning, for lack of a better term, in terms of budgeting and going forward with the titles.
Yeah.
I mean, certainly, looking at the, what the students, representatives talked about, I mean, between the arts have, they're not back at Westport, they're just better and better. And it's a credit to our kids and certainly our staff. I am extremely proud of both the men and women's basketball teams. They played extremely tough, and unfortunately, 1 point away in the boys' game. That was just brutal. But it was an unbelievable season for them, and quite frankly, a great season for all of our sports and our extracurriculars. So, credit to the staff and certainly the people behind the scene, which is the business people, to make sure that we have the money. As a matter of fact, one of the things we're trying to do right now is figure out where we can get a few more dollars, because the student participation in lacrosse is large enough that we can field a JV team this year. So that's a good sign as well, so. And that's about it, sir.
Thank you very
You
much.
got it.
Okay, moving on to item C, committee liaison reports. Start with Mr. Thrasher.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the Superintendent Search Subcommittee did hold its first meeting last week. We currently have a good crop of applicants that we will be going over. Our next meeting will be on Friday at 4 p.m. in the conference room. It will be adjourned to executive session to discuss the applicants. Our plan is to go over the credentials and resumes and make a decision on who to hire, or excuse me, who to interview over the course of the following 2 weeks. So, thank you very much to everyone who is participating in the committee. I know it's a little time consuming and also a little difficult to get the schedules together, but I'm based on the crop of applicants that we have, I'm pretty optimistic that we're going to be able to present some good finalists to the full committee. So,
Nothing new besides what Chris just said. I'm on that committee as well, the Superintendent Search Committee, and attended that first meeting. So looking forward to Friday. And then I didn't have any other subcommittee meetings since our last school committee meeting. So that's it.
I've had no subcommittee meetings.
Same.
All right, on my end, I have so the audit committee met, and we reviewed the draft letter from the auditor, which is now in final form. So that is available, I believe, on the town website. It should be available if it's not already soon. There were no material weaknesses identified by the auditor in that. I know the town accountant and treasurer have been working hard to address some of the issues that were previously identified and have been doing good work there. So the governance letter did not identify any material weaknesses. There were some areas that were raised that the auditor continues to raise, including areas like cybersecurity and security in that, I think just in general, especially with cash handling with town departments. There was also some identified dollars that were in low amounts that were from grants that hadn't been spent down from different departments, or maybe a couple $100 or less for those. Same thing with some old warrant articles. So they're working to address some of that, but those were all small amounts. That's just a matter of tracking down, where the money came from, which grant it was from, what the eligibility was, so they can spend it. So that's where that stands. But the big takeaway from that was no material weaknesses. Those reports and the meetings are public, so anyone who's interested in details on that, I recommend read the reports on the town website, review the meetings as well. Those are all publicly available documents. Okay, we'll move on to item D, the staff and student attendance report. So this covers, we didn't have one at the last meeting, so this covers both time frames that you have in front of you. Again, seems pretty, consistent. I don't know if there were any comments from the committee. Yes.
So these were fairly new reports that were requested by a member of the previous school committee based on, some things that were being noticed. I think as this committee moves forward, you might want to consider either having these done, maybe every 6 months, or maybe 3 months into the beginning of the year, or even just when administration feels like they want to report it out to you. Only because it's, it's all paperwork and time that goes into it, and it's seeming that the rate of attendance is pretty high. So just my 5 cents.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I think part of it too is DESE's identification of chronic absenteeism as an issue, but as you know, we've seen the numbers are pretty consistent in our district, so, which is a good thing.
Right, and one thing is we're looking at staff and we're looking at students, right? So I do think that having it listed for students, unless there's obviously an issue, which we haven't had an issue in a while, but if there's, having it for students on a regular, like I said, like maybe a quarterly basis, and unless there's a need.
Yeah, we save a ton of work. It's a lot of work getting that together every week. One of the things is that if there is an attendance issue that suddenly spikes, I believe that the building leadership will let us know about it, and then we can take whatever steps we think are important. But I would agree with Dr. Pacheco that it is a ton of work every week. It just is.
I appreciate
And,
it.
and it isn't a requirement, it really, from the 6 years that I was here before, we never did it, so.
No, it's not a requirement, it's just at the discretion of the, yeah, so if that's the sentiment of the committee, we can certainly adjust that. I appreciate you bringing that up. Are there any other comments on that?
I would just say that if it's maybe possible to start these reports almost quarterly, and just with the I guess the one caveat, if something does come up where something drops down, I mean, I don't know if that makes it easier on you or more difficult over there.
Quarterly?
Quarterly would be, okay. And with the caveat that should a week become,
Right.
Wildly askew, to bring it to the committee's attention, I think that would be sufficient if anyone, I don't know, we need a motion for that,
I don't
or
think we need a motion,
just
but if the committee, if the committee's
Call that
agreeable
a-
to it, then
Yeah.
we can go down that route. That's where we want to go.
Sounds good.
If there's any objection to that, or if that's,
So what we could do, Mr. Chair, is that at the end of the term, we could present something to the committee, and we'll have Mrs. Mello put that on the agenda at the end of each one, if everybody's okay with that, if that's something that you want to do. As the boss.
all right. Is there anything further? All right, hearing nothing, we'll move on to item E, Westport Community Schools bill warrant dated 3/7/2025, $182,551.01, and 3/21/2025, $495,620.89. I reviewed it, I looked through the invoices, it seemed, seeing now if there are any specific comments from the committee on this?
I do have just a specific question for the business office. It's been a hot topic in general in the Commonwealth, the rise in electric and gas bills over the last few months. I am just curious if there have been any wild spikes on our bills
But you have to
that
get the
would.
money back.
And that was actually going to be my next question, if we ever figured out the energy credit debacle that Eversource was
So
putting on us.
I think we actually have to go back a year. Melissa, about a year when we noticed that.
Yes, it was back in
About
April.
a year ago, we got a bill from Eversource. It was $10,000 more than the previous month. And that's when we immediately made a call to the state representative or state senator, as a matter of fact, about our concerns about the fact that if you extrapolate that out, you're looking at close to over $100,000. Since then, we've still been wrestling with getting all of the credits. I know that we've been getting some of them, and Mr. Chair, if it's okay, I think Melissa has been working very closely with Ms. Gillette. if I'm not
So
mistaken.
actually, it's a good time for that question, because we actually just received on our last month the credits that we've been holding that we've been waiting to receive since last April. So I'm waiting to close off the end of March to really take a look at that and see what that means, because as Mr. Alvin said, last year we probably overexpended about $90,000 in the utilities, so I really have to see now. The town accountant has put together a Schedule Z, which is realigning all the credits and working on that, so we're waiting for the end of this month, receive the bill in April for the end of this month to really take a look at how we stand at that point, so I can report back after that.
Excellent, thank you.
Is there anything further on the bill vote?
Just a clarifying question, just because I'm not sure what it is. SG Projecto 3, that's repetitive on the second bill warrant, just, I know it has to do with electrical at the different schools. Is that,
That SG Projecto, that's the solar bills. Is that what your question? Yes, and so that, you're seeing probably a lot of them as well, because they were behind. What was happening is Eversource wasn't reporting that information, so SG Projecto couldn't fill out their information, so we're receiving them. We're starting to receive all of them now.
thank you.
Thank you. Anything further? All right, we move to item F, proposal of graduation requirements. Sure.
Good evening, everybody. So 'tis the season where we begin scheduling for next school year, And part of that process is speaking with students and the guidance department about our graduation requirements. And over the past couple of guidance meetings, there were two proposals that I am looking to bring forward to you. So the first is prior to, well, including this year and the past several years, we've had a technology requirement. So over the course of their 4 years, a high school student needs to take at least one technology course to meet the WHS graduation requirements. Given the work that we've done specifically at the middle school to build up our STEAM programming and the work that our high school teachers are doing to incorporate technology into all courses, I'm proposing that that graduation requirement be removed from the formal list of graduation requirements so that students have a little bit more flexibility in their schedule to take the courses that they want to take as opposed to maybe the courses that they have to take. So that was the first course. Any questions regarding technology? Okay. So the second proposal surrounds our current community service requirement to graduate, which was implemented 3 years ago. And while I'm not looking to totally get rid of it, what I'm asking for is just a current pause to look at how maybe we can revamp that community service requirement and integrate it into our current academic courses. And I'm going to provide you 2 examples where community service work is done within the classroom by our teachers. So the first is at the middle school. Mr. John Bernier, along with Patty Summer and the Council on Aging and Veteran Affairs with Carol Freitas, they are interviewing our Westport veteran residents. They're gathering their stories, and they're working to publish a book. And that book will hopefully be put out this year, and we'll get the hard copies and send it out. And so what better community service than that, which is done right in the ELA class and then after school in the building, inviting those community members in. Another example is with Christian Hutchinson. He's a new science teacher. This is his 2nd year in district, and he's working with the Westport Watershed Alliance to get students out into the environment through his classes to do work to better the Westport environment, doing beach cleanups, etc. So what I'm looking for is to pause those requirements, to convene a committee to discuss how we can integrate more of these opportunities into the learning during the school day.
So I think it's great that we want to be more intentional about incorporating that into the curriculum. My question is on a pause. My initial thought would be that we could keep the current requirement as it is until a new one is in place that's integrated into whatever it may be, if it's curriculum or different coursework. That would be my initial thought, that we keep the current in place. Are you seeing issues with the way it's currently structured? Or?
So actually, I'm trying to be proactive with this because the way that the previous community service requirement was written in was that it doesn't go into effect until the class of 2026. So our current seniors are not bound by that current community service requirement, because when it was approved by the school committee, they wanted to give students time to get in those 20 hours. So there's flexibility to keep the current requirement because it's not going to impact our current senior class.
I see.
Yes.
Okay. So if there was a separate structure that was created before the class of 26 graduates, so say over the summer if something was created and that started or whatever coursework was impacted by it, could have that integrated by the beginning of the school year, so that then could be implemented, right, at that point for the
Correct.
for the next class.
So I'd be happy to come back to the committee,
Okay.
Present a proposal, and we can modify the graduation requirements then. But we have plenty of time.
Okay. So even if it was not removed on paper this year, it would not impact the current senior class?
Correct. Yeah. The business one has a greater impact because as students select courses, that could impact our seniors. So if they haven't gotten that requirement in yet and that's removed, it will give them more flexibility in the scheduling process.
For the technology piece?
For the, yes, for the, I may have said business, I apologize, technology piece.
I did have an initial thought on the technology piece is, I mean, technology is so integrated in everything that students do now. I mean, I'm not sure what it currently looks like with, you know, there was a class that was just computers, and it was, you sat at a desktop and that was your computer work. But now every student has a Chromebook, so does that requirement go beyond that to say you have to have some additional level of technological proficiency beyond just your, just your standard use of a...
So actually, I think what has happened over the past several years is that it's rolled down into the middle school classes. So in 7th and 8th grade, students are taking those desktop-based Windows computer classes through App Creators and Computer Science for Innovators and Makers. So they're getting those skills prior to coming to the high school.
So this is a question. Oh, sorry.
So the tech requirement that's currently in, this is for removing it for next year, correct?
Oh, correct. So the seniors are held to what the school committee had agreed were the graduation requirements that are posted in last year's program of studies.
So if someone already took a tech course, like were the credits more than 120?
No,
Do you
they
know what I mean?
just,
Like,
I understand what
are
you're
they
saying.
gonna lose it?
Nope, they won't lose anything. So it's just, I would feel safe to say that the majority of rising seniors have already probably taken this required course. You're probably talking about a handful that left it for senior year. So it wouldn't have an impact because they took a course, they're going to get credits for their course. It would just be in lieu of taking another elective.
So when you take the tech course out of here, are you adding anything in its place, or you're just removing it?
We're just removing it so that it would provide more opportunity for an additional elective credit of their choice.
Okay.
So on the second page, the total required credits for this school year was 92.5. If approved by the school committee for next year, the total required credits would be 90.
And that tech course, if someone already took it, could be considered an elective?
Absolutely.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
And we also have students who take multiple tech courses because that's of interest to them.
So would this impact the number of credits needed to?
Nope,
Okay.
because we are still requiring that students have 30 credits every single year for a total needed of 120 by the time they graduate.
So how many courses fit this requirement as it stands right now? How many classes that are offered?
I would say if you looked in our program of studies, it would be between 6 and 8 courses, but not everything runs every single year. What runs is based off of student selection.
Outside of the core courses that we obviously,
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, there are courses, you're always going to run English 9, you're always going to run Algebra 1. It's more the elective courses that are like fluid because it just depends on what that particular class may want in a given year.
I don't disagree with, obviously, the logic here, and obviously there's much more technology built into, education from the ground up when they begin. And have no problem with the removal of it. I think just a watch out for us as a committee is we have on our budgeted list an additional business technology teacher, and we're removing the need for a requirement from graduation. So I don't know if it's a bad timing thing or if it's an adjustment that we may look to make, but it was proposed to us and we approved it as part of our increase. So a little bit of a...
I'm happy to respond to that if you would like. So I had reached out to staff and got feedback on what courses they've heard from students that they might want to take in that realm, and the majority of them were business oriented. So we're talking about courses such as entrepreneurship, the stock market, digital literacy course, and we still have a business requirement within our graduation requirements. It's specifically personal finance, but I also think as we look to the future, that might be a conversation we want to come back to the table and have. That is it personal finance and maybe another course that we are going to require of students, given the need for financial and business literacy as students get older.
And Mr. Chair, if I may?
That was my understanding as well, that
Yeah.
the business aspect of this was what you were looking towards.
Yeah, in student selection of courses, it's the business courses, which unfortunately we just don't have the personnel for currently. Those are the ones that are more popular and sought after by students as opposed to web design. That's just one example.
I do like the idea that you mentioned of having a conversation about ways to, I guess, bolster the business side of things, because that's really a real-world aspect, right? Everyone talks about what's the value of, right, exactly, what's the value of public education. I mean, this would be an area, I think, where we could really say this is something that is concrete, that, you know, leaving here with some sort of life skill that beyond just your traditional typical personal finance class, right? You could say this is an add-on to that. So, just before, Mr. Robin, so these courses could also be used to fulfill the business requirement as well, right? Is that the idea with that?
With some of
with
these
this?
new courses?
Yes.
As the graduation requirement, is currently written, students have to take personal finance
I
to
see.
meet the graduation requirement. But I am certainly not opposed to polling students, talking to the guidance department, what are colleges looking for, to have a conversation about maybe changing that requirement or making an addition.
Thank you. Mr. Robin?
Well, thanks. Based on my conversation with a number of people, including our business manager, we used to have a very strong DECA program here, Distributed Educated Clubs of America, and obviously the value of that has not gone away. In fact, it's become, and we've spoken about the fact that we need to reintroduce that, including, you know, even maybe a school store online and things of that nature to generate income as well. I think additionally, I think for the committee going forward, because I will not be here, but I think it's going to be important to assess your courses every year as things are changing exponentially. There was a report this week on, for example, sports betting, and we know that sports betting is a real nightmare for the age group 18 to 35. I would suggest that at some point we might want to address that in one of our courses with some of our seniors who are leaving, you know, and, you know, these are the types of courses or mini courses or micro courses that could be embedded within these things. But what I'm suggesting is that you're going to be looking at these every year because things are changing just so rapidly right now. And I think to not do it, you'd be doing it at your own peril, and our students' peril as well.
Further thoughts from you on that? I just had a follow-up on the volunteer requirements. So what does that currently look like in terms of, so if a student is fulfilling those, or I guess they wouldn't, because you're saying it's a new piece that was implemented.
But we've really been pushing with our students, like the class of 2026, that's our current juniors. You need 20 hours by the time you graduate, so think about how are you going to get that done if you haven't already started. We've really been pushing 5 hours a year, makes it more manageable. Yep, so what is it looking like?
Yeah.
Students are completing community service hours, they're getting forms signed off, and then they're going into their folders, their guidance folders.
Okay. Yeah, that was I was wondering how that was accounted for, but okay, that makes sense, yeah. I wasn't sure if the district was seeking certification, which I would imagine would be burdensome on administration to, like, verify themselves, you know, so if you're receiving forms and having them sign that makes sense. Okay. Yeah. My hesitation on the volunteer requirement is I think that I agree with you that we do need a more intentional way of incorporating it into the curriculum, whether that's through coursework. I think that the examples you mentioned are great. My concern is that if we remove it, that we might lose sight of having that as the target. sure what the committee has any.
I do agree, and
Additional thoughts?
the two that were mentioned are phenomenal. And, you know, I have a little bit of knowledge from both of them, but I think part of my hesitation, or one of my thoughts with it is that it doesn't, is there a way, and I think the middle school one may reach a little bit more kids or close to the entire grade, but I don't think it does in the high school unless, you know, the students have that specific teacher. If there was maybe a way to incorporate it for every student in a grade, let's say by 8th grade on the middle school side of things, and then, you know, kind of something similar on the high school side of things, I think that would be phenomenal. But I just worry, I think it is super, super important to our community and to the kids, and certainly a life lesson with community service. But I would hate to see a way to kind of wiggle around it, or, you know, it not to fit into, you know, a student's course load by the time they graduate somehow, because they don't have a specific teacher that really has that focus as well.
We have both options. That's, I know if I don't have that teacher, but I do community service. So here's my letter. Might give both options to still make the requirements, because there'll be people that are gonna fall through the cracks. But at least both options, you can do A or B. So that way you're not having to change much. You're just adding, okay, these students did this, but you three didn't, so instead of what are you gonna do? You can't lose that. Let's do something else. If you leave A and B there, you're pretty open to everything.
And it would be my goal to expand it so that it's not just a couple of teachers, and if a student doesn't get into one of those classes, they don't miss out. I also have to be very mindful that for some of our students, just getting to school, getting done what they need to get done, and making it across the finish line is hard enough for them. To then ask them to do this additional piece and say, well, your diploma could be on the line, I want to provide even more opportunities for our students. So I agree with you. I don't think it has to be an A or a B. We can look to mesh both.
So, I think, you know, Mrs. Charette has brought this to us, and me, you know, I've seen the work that she's been able to do, and I have very high level of confidence that she can rally the troops and get the resources together to ensure our students have options for doing their community service. So I hear that she's not looking to get rid of it, but to more so provide opportunities for our students to have that in the classroom. And I was going to say that there are some students who just aren't going to be able to do it outside of the classroom, whether they can't get a ride or whether they just don't have the mental capacity to be able to get that done, and we're going to provide those resources. I think revamping it in a way that says to the teachers, you know, you need to be able to implement this in, because we're not going to have our students, this is going to be the main focus. I'm sure if someone comes in and says, you know, I have this opportunity to work for the American Heart Association for whatever, I'm sure that the guidance council will work with them and say, yeah, you can do that in addition. But I think having that be the main focus of our community service will just impact us in a positive way. She also has to get it together, so I think having her work on that and do that and then bring that back to the committee, I for one would like to see her to do that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like, let's give her the chance now that she's brought this to us.
I wholeheartedly agree. I have no doubt in Ms. Charette's ability to do that, and I have full confidence that she'll find a way to make it work. My thought is in the interim that we don't remove that requirement, but we keep it, and we can implement the suggestions that you have as part of that. And if it is a robust thing that does engage, you know, all of our students in it, then we can certainly, I think, remove it at that point. That would be my thought.
So when is the rollout? When are you looking at rolling this out? I thought it was like next year.
No, because I think we have some time. I'm happy to take the next couple of months and work on this, and then present to the committee in the later spring, if that works.
So-
So for this, before you,
Very specific question. Mike.
So is there urgency on your end to approve this item tonight?
No, there
Okay,
is not
so that was my
urgency.
question. So if there's, so this, because it's not impacting the class of 25?
Yes.
Okay. All right,
There's a
great.
little bit of urgency on the technology requirement, just so that students can properly schedule themselves for next
Right.
year, but whatever you feel is best.
I would personally be in favor of, I would not be opposed to removing the technology requirement. I agree with you, but I see your point now, timing-wise, why, yes, I understand what you're saying. Let's see.
So, two questions. First of all, as far as choosing courses, is there a deadline that you would need the committee to act on the technology requirement specifically?
Preferably before next school year, because my goal is to have students have full schedules before they leave in June at the high school level. So that would be my goal.
Understood, okay. The second question, just going back to the requirements for volunteer service, what I'm curious, you had mentioned that this has been a requirement that has been set for the class of 26 for some time, and that you have, the administration has been recommending 5 hours a year. So are we in a situation where there's a significant amount of students that are off, that aren't keeping pace with that at this time? Is that?
So working with high school students, we know that the final minute is when they're going to turn in their stuff. So we have had students turning in 5 hours every year, or all of their hours in 1 year. But we do have some students that are currently juniors that haven't turned in any hours yet. But there's always plenty of opportunity within our schools to get those community service hours done. For example, we had parent-teacher conferences today. That's 2 hours right there where they can assist parents in finding classrooms. We have parent-teacher conferences tomorrow. That's another 2 hours. They could get 4 hours done this week. So there's always plenty of opportunity. So I'm not as concerned if they haven't turned anything in yet. One, because they may have just not turned in the paper, and two, we can assist them if ultimately that requirement stays.
So I was just wondering, when you said 5 hours, 20 hours for graduation.
Correct. And they can do all 20 hours as freshmen and be done with the requirement. They can do 5 hours a year. It's whatever works for them as it's currently written in the graduation requirements.
Ultimately, I would be concerned with removing the requirement, but I am very interested in what kind of integrated program you can create so that there are opportunities within instruction time as well. So if there's any way that you could get back to us with what a pause would look like, or would it really be a pause or just a kind of reformulating for the next year?
Absolutely.
And just so that the committee is aware, and I don't want to let the cat out of the bag, but within the next month or two, I believe that Westport will be given innovation pathway status by the state. So that will certainly help bolster our technology usage by our students. Yeah, we need to replace these space computers. We need to be on that
I know
list.
that makes some funding available for a lot of
Huge.
different
Skills capital
programs.
grant.
That's great.
Yeah,
Wow.
and that's typically somewhere around up to $500,000. That's real money. Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
So,
There are some districts that have built entire programming around that are, not your traditional academic courses, but have built, even non-vocational schools that have done a lot with that
Yeah,
funding, so.
and I think what Lisa Kaminsky's done, working with Laura, has been amazing. And I'm really excited about the possibility of looking at this, community service in a much more organic way, because I think it's scalable. I think there's a legitimate concern for those who simply cannot get anywhere to do the community service necessary. And I just think if we can do this organically, I really think it'll be a model going forward. And I know, Principal Charette working with her team, they're going to knock it out of the park. I'm absolutely sure of it.
Can I say one? So the last thing that I'll say is there are some students who just are, we look at community service and maybe we look at ourselves or our family members, we think, okay, well, we'll definitely be able to do it, we'll definitely be able to get it done. But there are some people, there are some families that just may not be able to do that. And if you can imagine a student who's just bare bones getting through their high school career, not being able to graduate because they were unable to do 20 hours of community service. And I know that's what none of us want, but when that's a requirement that they have to get done. So while I'm in favor of it, I mean, and I'm just going to say that the more we can do to be able to provide that resource, the better. So,
Anything further from the committee? Right, right.
Thank you, as
Thank you.
always.
Thank you.
Okay, we move to item G, discussion of school choice for the FY '26 school year.
I think you've earned me, Michelle.
How would we like to do this? Do we want the principals to, I know they're listed on the agenda.
So why don't we go through this very quickly?
Yeah, let's-
All right.
Correct.
So I'll start off by saying that we introduced school choice, I think it was 2 years ago, if I'm not mistaken. And quite frankly, it was to try and generate as much revenue as possible. Students equal dollars. I wish it weren't true, but it is true. So what Michelle is going to explain is what has happened with school choice since its inception here at Westport.
Correct. So we're going to go on to slide 2. What this shows you is our current enrollment as of October 1 or as Felicia did as of March 13th. So this is the enrollment as of that date by grade level. We currently, right now, when we went out for this FY '25, we were opening up school choice to 5 students in grade 7, 5 in grade 8, 10 in grade 9, 10 in grade 10, and 5 in grade 11. What came over to us from 7th grade, we received 2 students out of the 5, 4 out of the 5 for grade 8, 3 out of 10 students for grade 9, 2 for grade 10, and 1 for grade 11. So we received 14 of the 35 that the school committee approved to open up school choice for. Then I'm going to go to slide 3 here. Sorry, my phone is going in and out.
Before you
So-
get to that, if it's okay, Mr. Chair, I just want to point out that the revenue we received in school choice last year, and Melissa, if I'm wrong, I'm not turned up, somewhere around $118,000.
I have that
No,
slide.
wrong, I think it's $138,000.
138.
Yes, so
$138,000.
school choice receiving, if you look right over here, I will highlight this in yellow just so that you can see it a little better. So for this year, we're receiving $138,582. That is with 23 school choice students. So although I said 15 students, these are students that were already with us in school choice prior years. FY '25, 23 students. Last year we received $61,682. Year before that, we had 12 students. We only received $5,714. Year before that was only 3 students. So as you can see, the school choice the amount per student is about $5,000. If we have a student with special needs, there is a process that you go through to fill out your school choice reporting, which is calculated based on services within that grid on the IEP. So there's a calculation that happens. So our students for special ed, depending what they have in that grid, will depend on how much money we receive for school choice. So as you can see from FY '20, we have definitely increased, even from FY '25 to this current year, what we're going to receive is going up $76,000.
So on that, is there the increases there aren't proportional to the number of students, right? Because you have 12 enrollment and
It's not clean.
Correct.
Right.
It's
So
not a
what
clean
is
club.
is that just
Well,
based on?
one thing I will tell you from having actually a registrar now who's doing the reporting on a regular basis is definitely a huge help, because definitely the efficiency of reporting now is 100% more accurate than what it had been in the past. So some of this right here, of this differential that you can see, is probably incorrect reporting during certain times. So that does make an impact, but right now, she currently, she goes on to the school choice reimbursement online with DESE. She then keeps track of them. For instance, when we looked at this report back here, you'll see that there are 2 students right here. These 2 students in grades 5 and grade 6 were brought in as school choice. We ended up having to report that they came from Fall River. They're reported as living in Westport off of Blossom Road, but because they pay taxes in Fall River, those 2 students shouldn't have come to us. They should have been reported, and they stay with Fall River schools. So that was something that we found out last year in that process. We, at this point, we're not sending them back, you know, so we're receiving school choice funding for them. The other thing that you can look at here,
So if, when that occurs, is that considered, taking one of the slots that are approved by
no,
the committee, or is that
moving
set?
forward, it does
Okay,
not.
Okay, all right.
So we'll stick to just the school choice right now. So this here is a projection of looking at next year, what the numbers will be, shows a student ratio of what they currently are. Some of these classes may be off a bit. She basically just took the averages across the board. So you might have a class that might have 24 in it, and another class may only have 21 in it. So this is just averages. Our principals could probably give you more of an exact number. So we had sat down and we had spoken to some of the principals to find out what their recommendation would be. We also sat down with Mr. Orban to figure out what we thought we would like to see come in to help increase enrollment. And this was just a preliminary projected look that we would like to see 5 in kindergarten, 5 in first grade, 10 in fourth, 10 in fifth, 5 in grade 6, 5 in grade 9, and 5 in grade 10. So in that discussion, there was many things taken into consideration. It was taken enrollment, continuity of students staying with the district. If they came in at a younger age, they would be with us longer if they got into Westport. We didn't feel bringing them in at 11th and 12th was probably feasible. We felt like a lot of times you might be getting different students that, you know, are not making it in other schools and then, you know, taking up resources with Westport. We felt getting them in again at 4th, 5th, and 6th grade was getting them into the district and maybe trying to hold on to them. So we were looking at a way to increase the enrollment as well. What we have done in the past, just so everybody knows as well, we have denied a student or two if a student has come to us and during the IEP process we find out that there is a certain program that they need that we do not have. We have sent a letter saying, unfortunately at this time, we do not have a program that meets your child's needs to move forward into Westport. So that has happened. The other thing that happens is if a student currently, it comes in as school choice and then needs to be sent out to another program, that student at that time now becomes enrolled back in the sending school district and they take on the financial responsibility at that point in time. If we receive a school choice student that comes in, say, in January, that school choice reimbursement is prorated. So we would only receive, say, out of 10 months, and the student's only with us for 5 months, we're only going to receive those 5 months at $500 a month. And that money, just so everybody knows, the school choice reimbursement comes directly to the school district. It does not go to the town, like Chapter 70.
Is that, is this rolling enrollment?
It's
or
a
is this
revolving.
certain period?
I'm sorry, I heard you both spoke at the same time. Go ahead.
Is this a rolling enrollment, or is it a set period where you can enroll in school, for the school choice from other districts?
They can enroll all year long in this. Like, for this year, if we're approved this year for, say, just grades 5 through 11, they can enroll right up until May 1st, June 1st even, to enroll.
But the reimbursement will be prorated.
Correct, the reimbursement gets prorated. So this here was just basically the calculation and payment of how tuition and charges, what it looks like. I won't bore anybody with that. Again, this was the school choice pupils tuition preliminary, which I kind of reviewed with everybody just now. And then Felicia just wanted to put in here, this was just like for information. So we had current number of school choice students with IEPs currently right now are 5 students, and we're receiving $23,582 for like any types of additional services that they receive, and it's based on their IEP and what. So if a student has 30 minutes of speech services and they receive that service 3 days a week, Felicia will sit down with the SPED department to do the school choice report, and they will look at the sped service for each one of the students that's on school choice and build into that report how, so it's 30 minutes, 3 days a week, this many, you know, depending on how many months they're doing it for, and that's how the report is done. So it gives you an idea of what, so if they receive PT, if they receive OT, if they receive some type of RBT services, that's all broken up in there, or if psychological services or testing of some sort. That's how that's broken up.
My thought on this is if the number that we're getting in reimbursement for the students is not proportional to the number of students, is there a point at which, at least to a degree that we can predict, right, just looking at that spreadsheet, is there any concern as to a point at which the reimbursement doesn't cover what the district could anticipate as costs for the increased enrollment?
I think, and I hope I'm understanding the question correctly.
Yeah, what you're saying is, do we...
Is there a point where the increase in enrollment is outweighed by the increased cost that the district incurs from higher enrollment?
SPED, we'll go back to, but I think, but maybe a better example would be like, so if we receive a student, say we receive a high school student that comes in grade 9, and I might have Mrs. Charette jump in if we need be, but we have a student that comes in, maybe the student showing some behavioral issues and requires a little bit more attention, but it's not in an IEP, but where we find a student that is struggling and is requiring a lot more services, that's kind of where the reimbursement we're receiving is being outweighed by the amount of services that student is receiving. So if it's taking some extra, you know, the school guidance counselors are having to spend time with the student every single day for an hour or two, that, and because it's not part of an IEP and it's not in a grid anywhere, that we're not getting that money back. So that's time taken away from, say, Westport students. Does that make a little more sense? So that's where it would be cost effective. It's, you know, we could be losing money because we're not getting to spend it on our own students, I guess, if you could say it that way.
So, and even this figure, the IEP reimbursement, that's the reimbursement figure, that's not the cost figure, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. So for instance, the cost for Westport for teaching each student per pupil is like $17,000 per pupil. So that's the expenditure account. So we pay, the district cost the district around $17,000, not the exact amount, $17,000 per student. So if we're investing that same amount into a school choice student, and not that I'm knocking school choice, so I don't want you to take that that's the direction I'm going, but to answer your question, Evan, that's kind of
Because we get the reimbursement at 5.
correct.
Right? So,
I have
the
a
difference.
question. On the projected enrollment, so you say in first grade, you take 5 in. Now those kids come back the next year, the second grade, that's still taking 5 in instead of 0. Are you not gonna take them because there's no allotment?
No, this is already looking at what next year's numbers would be for their enrollment. So if we were to say we're taking 5 students in kindergarten,
Right.
we're projecting that next year's kindergarten class is 110, we would be taking in 5
Those students
students.
stay in the district, though.
They stay in the district,
That's
yes, they don't
they're
leave.
not leaving the district.
So
They're
even if
always-
school
right.
choice goes away, they
They're
still
still-
get that.
They would remain with us.
Okay.
Even if the school committee said, we're not doing school choice next year, those students that are currently in school choice currently right now would remain with us. And
The
that
district
funding,
continues to receive the
correct,
funding.
and that funding would remain with us as well.
So I have to be frank here and say that I have serious concerns with opening up school choice at the elementary school level. And I one of my goals that I would like to see this district in terms of increasing enrollment, I would like to see that increase come from keeping Westport students in Westport. The school choice, I think there's clearly a couple of classes, especially in the high school level, where I think it makes sense to maybe have a 5-a-year allotment. But on the elementary school side, with the uncertainty regarding SPED services and IEP services, the longer someone is in the district, just law of averages, the more likely it's more likely that they may test into needing an additional service. So I have serious concerns from the financial standpoint, and even just looking at, the average or the approximate student-to-teacher ratios already. I'm just not sure if the juice is worth the squeeze here, especially when it comes to the elementary school. But that's just kind of a cursory review of this right now.
How many kids do
So.
we have on school choice that are in other schools?
I can tell you that right now. So school choice sending right now, we have 69 students, which as you can see, we've done actually a much better job from the past years. The decrease has happened, like this year, we actually are in better, we only have 69 students in school choice in other schools. Keep in mind, that school choice counts for such things as Diamond,
Yeah.
Stang, all of those are in there. So, but the number, as you can see, is definitely gone down from previous years. So that's been a huge help to us, to Westport, for what we've done here.
So thank you for doing this enrollment chart and the projected enrollment. I think it's pretty clear, the numbers. I think in the past, I would have been concerned, I would have had the same concerns as Attorney Thrasher. However, looking at our numbers now and seeing what our so just to confirm, our student-to-teacher ratio here includes school choice allotment or does not?
This
So
number
that
here,
22-to-1 includes if 5 come over?
no, it does not. This number here is not included in this number.
So if all 5 come over, it would be 27-to-1?
23 to 1.
Because it's by
Right, it's by 5 classes.
per class.
Mr. Aguirre probably can help, and also Mrs. Duquette,
Okay, so it
just
would
to
be,
confirm these numbers as they look now. Mrs. Duquette shaking her head yes.
so then it would be, because there are 5 classes.
Right, you'd
in
be like
each-
23 per student per
Okay.
kindergarten. If you looked at grade 1, we'd probably be at 23 students, Mr. Aguirre, you think? More or less?
What
So-
about,
But it's 5 classes, so it would be
Correct.
23 to 1.
Right.
what about grade 4?
Grade 4, you definitely would be at close to 23, 24
Okay.
kids per student.
Grade 4 has 6 teachers. It's
6, I'm sorry,
5. The
correct.
rest of them have 5. And the reason that we chose to have 6 and 4 was because of, first of all, transition.
Sure, no,
You know,
for sure.
going from 4th grade to a middle high school, it's a significant challenge. There's also curriculum reasons why that took place as well.
Sure. So I think our numbers are reasonable, they're not at 26, 27. And I'll also say that I think if we have our students come in for school choice at the elementary school, I think that they'll stay until the end, I think we'd have a high likelihood of our students who come in as school choice staying even in high school, throughout, those years. So, that's one of the reasons why I think in this case, it makes sense to do the school choice allotment. That's here, I prefer it versus the high school, because once you get to the high school, a lot of the students have already, they've gotten all those they've built the foundation, and then they're here. If we get them early on, they're able to build the foundation with our teachers here to be successful, but.
I think we should listen to the principals too, to see what their view is and everything too, because they're the ones that are living it.
Would any of the principals like to share the school choice?
There are notes on the bottom of the sheet as well, with recommendations from the principals, it looks like.
So I'll just start with 2 things. I think it's important to acknowledge that at the high school level, we have to be mindful of our requirements and what students have to take to get a Westport diploma. So students coming in the 11th and 12th grade, it makes it much more challenging for them in a shorter period of time to meet those requirements. MCAS, passing MCAS is now off the table as of November, so that's one less thing we have to worry about, but that's why my input was that we don't recommend it for 11th and 12th. In terms of the younger grades, I've thought a lot about that, and I've gone back and forth. I initially started out like Attorney Thrasher, not necessarily feeling like it might be a good idea, but then pivoting more, Dr. Pacheco, to what your mindset is. And if we can get them earlier, I think we can have a greater impact on them. I also think that this is not a general statement. This is just what I have found in many of my experiences, is that family buy-in is much greater at the younger levels. And so maybe getting them here earlier would be beneficial to Westport.
Mr. Aguirre, Mr. Cap?
Hello. Good evening. Hello, I jotted a couple of notes down because I wasn't sure if I would be able to make the meeting. I did, when we were posed with this question, I had my thoughts on it, and I ended up discussing it with staff who also had their own thoughts on it. And some of the things that came up was just the allocation of resources, because sometimes we do struggle already with our service providers, and at the younger grades, we do service a lot of children with some of their early intervention needs. And again, we have some of our therapists are already commuting in between schools, and so just adding to that might bring some, added pressure to the staffing. Also, some of the things they spoke about was just thinking, if, I'll throw out, if there was 5 now, through the years, would there be more increase of interest? So, it's 5 this year, would it be, 10 next year, and that, and they were just thinking of just the support to the residents first and foremost before we take on other students. And I again also, school choice at the upper grades, the child is invested in the choice, and when they're younger, it's a family's choice. So we struggle with just thinking about if it's the family's choice. When the child gets older and all their neighborhood friends are doing, more local events, what does it look like for, even town rec things? How does that, how do we manage those things? The struggle, just kind of, increases. Again, of course, whatever, thoughts are, we can, again, talk about it and try to make things work, but we just really were thinking of the residents first and what we can do for them, and try to keep adding on to even, more supports, family engagement. We thought of that too, if people live further away, will we have the volunteers? Will we have, families who want to come in? I think we're increasing family engagement, truly, with every event, and would that be, a struggle for some families? So that was it at the kindergarten level. Already preschool, we do have some students that are out of town. Thank you.
Thank you.
As Mr. Aguirre is walking to the microphone, I will note, committee does not have to act on this tonight. If that's the pleasure of the committee, we do have until June 1st to act on this item. So we don't have, just wanted to, we can, but if that's the pleasure of the committee, but we don't have to tonight per se.
Thank you very much. So I wasn't sure I could make it tonight, so I'm glad that I was able to. I did share a one-pager with some of my thoughts and one of the photos from one of our classes. So when I first was presented with this, I had to, like Mrs. Duquette, I talked to my assistant principal, Mr. Persico, mentioned it to the staff, try to get some feeling from people what they feel. Our staff feels like the physical size of the classrooms at 23 students, we're averaging 23 basically in first, second, and third. And as Mr. Orban said, in 4th grade we have 6. So we take the same number of students but divide them by 6. So in 4th grade our current ratio is 19. When you look at the size of a physical classroom, I took a photo of the one and I shared it with you for the 25 students in 1st grade. That is a very tight scenario in that particular situation. And it doesn't really, at 23, we can be at 25 tomorrow, the way kids can, students can come and go. We also have issues with, a student comes in, for instance, and they're on an IEP. We can't necessarily control it across all 5 classes if the special education services are only in 2 of those classes. So if that class is already at 23 and there's another one at 21, but the child needs special education services, I have to place them in one of the classes that are already higher. So it's not necessarily equal across the classes, but I do think that's a concern of the school, whether it's the size. And in grade 1, I know the budgets are tight, and you probably would give more money if you had it. I totally understand that. In grade 1, which is different than in kindergarten, we have no classroom paraprofessionals. So the teacher is one teacher with all 23 students. Big difference between, in kindergarten, they have a student with one paraprofessional. So a lot of times at the start of the year, we get into situations where we're like, this is a different student than what we saw in kindergarten, but they are actually one teacher and they don't have an aide, even if it's not attached to them. Classroom aides are a big deal. So our personal recommendation would be not to do it at the elementary grades. With that being said, when I look at the 4th grade and there's 6 classes, for the sake of, if you wanted to do school choice, I think 4th grade is an area where we could take the students. Because at that point, we have the 6 teachers. Now, if we ever had to make cuts and drop down to 5 teachers, it would defeat that argument. But I think looking at what I've seen today, we're not looking at reducing a 4th grade teacher. I think 4th grade could be something that you could look at relative to that. And when you look at the timing, as Chair Gendro said, I think June is the deadline, and we don't usually take this up in fall river, I don't think, until like May, basically, so we can kind of see what's happening. I could get some people transfer in now, so these numbers might change by then, and you could always revert back if you wanted to, but I would say that we should either do 4th grade, and I wouldn't recommend any in the 1st grade. I do agree with Mr. Thrasher and his point. I think almost everybody on this committee has said the same thing. We want to take our homegrown Westport students into the school district. And I think the more quality job that Mrs. Duquette, myself, and Principal Charette do with our students, we're going to be getting, the better job that we do, we're going to be getting some of those students back. So we just want to make sure that there's always enough area so that when that comes to fruition, because I do think we're doing a great job, once we get those people back, we don't want to be now at 25, would be my only, because once you approve it in the summer, if you add more, now we're going to have a higher class size. So.
Do you happen to know the years past and what the enrollment was in those classes, in those grades?
It's very, very similar to what we have here in grades 1, 2, 3, and 4. So when you look up the 110, 119, 116, we basically fluctuate around that number, give or
With the
take.
same number of teachers, though?
Last year was the first year that we had 5. So when we had changed the 6 down to 5 for the reading specialists, which I do think is a great thing, and thank you for that, that's where the numbers have been consistent, 5 in grades 1, 2, and 3. And if they hover around 116, thereabouts, 114, it's at 23, basically at 23 in each of those classes.
So I'd be interested in knowing over the past 5 years what the enrollment has been in each of those classes and the student to teacher ratio, because I feel like I can remember higher, but I could be wrong, so.
I can get that information.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions from committee?
Just, again, my personal thoughts. I agree with basically everything that was said here, and even some of the, I think, thoughts on bringing them in earlier will help to keep them. I don't disagree in terms of the thoughts, and I do worry a little bit about the class sizes now and offering it to those grades and increasing them, along with what Mr. Aguiar just said. Also agreeing with Ms. Charette and the, not necessarily risk, but the thought of incoming juniors or seniors coming from other districts that have different requirements in trying to hold them to our standards and be able to fit it into their schedule. In just a general statement, I think that our focus needs to continue to be on the community and the students of Westport. And it's not a slight to anyone outside of here, but I'm a big proponent of not having and not offering school choice and continuing to work on the success that we've had in keeping our own kids here in Westport.
And just to add to what you said, Mr. Pacheco, I think regardless of the action the committee takes on this, I think what we don't want to lose sight of is the importance of retention, because that's really, I think, important. I mean, we've always seen it's always been a drop-off between 8th and 9th grade, it's always been, but the extent to which we can minimize that, I think, is really where the focus should be. I mean, I know we've seen it increase, which is great, because a lot of the things that are happening here, it's been really great to see that. But I just wanted to note that it shouldn't be lost in the conversation as part of this, that the retention is certainly important. My initial reaction to what we heard from our building leaders, that if the committee were to go ahead with school choice for the next school year, that it'd only be grades 4, 9, and 10 is what I'm hearing from building leaders, if we were to move forward with it the next year.
I want to be abundantly clear about this. In 2001, 41 pink slips went out at Dyno. And the superintendent said you have one of two choices. You can increase enrollment or you can cut 41 people. He met with the union president. They brought 200 more people in and avoided the layoffs. We're sitting right now, as we sit, as the crow flies, we're sitting on $200,000 shortfall, but we're not sure that it could be as high as $400,000. That's $138,000 in school choice. It's the committee's choice. Understand that if we had a robust group of people that were coming in from Westport, we wouldn't have even recommended school choice. But the fact is that we were bleeding students out of this district. And one of the things that the committee has passed by, which I think is an amazing statistic, is the amount of retention that has been taking place here over the past 2-3 years. And I would say that would be great if that we can guarantee that, but we can't. So I don't have a dog in the race. The question becomes, you cut school choice numbers, you cut revenue, you're going to cut people, because people and revenue are tied, especially in a budget where over 80% of the people are salaried. So, I mean, whatever the committee decides is fine. But I want to make it abundantly clear that $138,000 is real money in this district. And,
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. I don't disagree with that. My thought is if we're not increasing the enrollment, then I'm not saying that the increase in expenses is proportional, but there would be I'm not saying a savings, but less expense incurred, because we're not, if it costs more per pupil to take in a student, I'm not sure at what point, if there is a point at which the expense outweighs.
we haven't seen that. You tell me if I'm wrong. Have we seen it?
No, I would like to add, I guess, take into account that if you had a class that was already at 25 and now you have to bring in a new teacher or 27, yes, that's when our resources definitely would be hurt. And also with the SPED, you don't know the different needs as the kids are getting older, and the specialized needs, which are excess costs. But to put a number, I can't say that. This number depends on the situation.
But as it stands right now, it's been a net positive.
To Mr. Auburn's, thought process, if we don't look to increase our revenue in places that we can, and, we land up having these issues, which we already know that our budget could potentially be cut by 25%, the Title I grants or the Title grants. I mean, who's to say that we won't have to reduce our staff? And if we did, taking one teacher away, which is less than 100,000, would be more of an impact. So I think we really have to be mindful of what is it going to be to add one student per grade. And I think I'd really like to look at the numbers to see what our numbers have been over the last 5 years to see. I mean, I don't think I'm ready to make a decision now. I'd like to see those numbers, and then I'd like to, think about what else can we measure. Now, I mean, I'd love to have 18 students per every single class, and then we can get another building and hire more teachers, and, you know, we'll go get the pot of money that's growing in the backyard. But, you know, we don't have that, so we have to do with what we have. And I would rather see one student more per class than have to reduce our staff and potentially have classrooms that have 28 students.
Thank you. And for the record, I don't want to give the impression that I'm against school choice or anything. I'm just saying that I want to make sure the committee's thoughtful when we, discuss this.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I've been standing here because you didn't tell me I could go sit down.
Okay.
I just,
Yes,
you know,
I
it's a late note, but
apologize,
I
yes.
just had one comment on the 10 students in grade 4. So if I was seeing the numbers right, we have 138,000 in revenue that's going to continue, because once they're here, you stay.
Right.
So if we did nothing else on that board, but added 10 students in grade 4, which I do think we can do based on the 6 people, that would be a net $50,000 increase. So if everything else stayed the same, you still got the 138 in your pocket, because that carries over. We would get, if you just did the grade 4, you'd have $50,000 in addition. So you're not losing, it doesn't go back to zero. So because we haven't had any before, and we had 10, if we added 5, now it's $25,000 increase. And we'll support whatever you guys think. I just think it's a good dialogue, and thankfully we have time. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any additional thoughts from the committee on this item? Questions, comments?
I'd certainly like to revisit this, obviously. I don't think
Yes,
it's fair to make a decision tonight, but so by June 1st is,
Correct, by
When we-
June 1st, yeah. So we can add it to the next agenda if that's the pleasure of the committee. We can, that's,
We could add it to the next agenda, because if we could add it to the next agenda, and then if we don't agree, you can just table it again until the next meeting.
if we want to,
sounds good.
Way to go, Podges.
If I'm giving too much of an opinion, you can just table it and then make a decision.
So we'll move to, and thank you, Ms. Surratt, Mr. Kett, and Mr. Aguirre for coming tonight and explaining. Thank you. Okay, we will move to item H, discussion of superintendent search community survey. I will defer to the chair of the subcommittee, Mr. Thrasher.
thank you, Mr. Chair. So this was a suggestion that was brought up by several members of the search committee, search subcommittee. In the past, I believe that there was a survey sent out. In the past, I believe there was a survey sent out to the Westport schools community, asking just some questions on what everybody would like to see in a new superintendent. It was requested that we put such a survey out, just a quick little Google form type of situation, and I wanted to defer to the full school committee, since that technically wasn't part of the search committee's purview, but I would certainly like to see something sent out as soon as possible, and I can certainly help everyone involved to get this out.
I agree that there should be a survey. If there are thoughts from the committee on what should be incorporated in that, we can discuss that tonight. I would also suggest that we incorporate the opinions of the subcommittee in that as well, and that be included as an action item on the agenda for, you said you're meeting on Friday.
We are meeting on Friday, and it basically wanted to bring it to the full committee to get approval, so to speak, and then we'll figure out some of the question detail, or the details of the questions, but we could certainly.
Are
put
there
that on.
specific items that you, or I guess we can open it to the committee, items that would like to be included in that?
So there were a couple of committee members who were actually involved in, or one particular committee member was involved in a previous search and had some questions that were left over, I guess, from the last search. So I certainly incorporate some of those. We did not necessarily discuss in great detail the contents of this survey yet, but we can certainly do that on Friday. And ideally, with the timeline, we're talking about choosing who to interview at this next meeting, and then in 2 weeks' time, have interviews during that week. Somewhere, I believe, the current timeline calls for presenting finalists to the full committee, the week of April 7th, I think. So, if it's possible to get a survey out, between now and then, I think, basically before our final decision,
So you're saying before you begin interviewing?
before we
Right,
pick the
right.
the finalists, not necessarily so much on the,
Yeah, so you can bring the feedback.
between now
to-
and then.
yeah.
Yes, exactly.
So just a question, are you looking to do the survey, and if you are, if you need help with it, I'm more than happy to help, like with the.
I'm so sorry, one more
I know that these mics are, are you going to be doing the survey? And if you are and you need help with it, I'd be more than happy to help you, because I do that, and I'm not sure like what you're going to use, if we have Qualtrics here, or if we have access to it.
It was
Oh, Google
everything from a Google form to just survey, it doesn't have to be too complex so much
Yeah.
as just offering a chance for feedback, I
Yeah.
think, so. But I appreciate that
So,
also. So
okay, well, if
keep
you do,
on that, yeah.
so I think a survey is a good idea. You want to make it as short as possible, because then people won't answer it. Yeah, that's it.
I would also suggest in terms of distribution, so people are aware that it's out there, that it be shared maybe on social media and probably also on the town website. So there's a landing spot for it, so maybe we can talk to the clerk's office or the select board office to see if we can get this there as well.
The goal would certainly be to disseminate it far and wide.
Right.
So, absolutely, and that was, I don't necessarily think, like I said, there needs to be a motion or action, so to speak, but I did want to bring it to the full committee just so that.
I mean, we could
committee was
take
aware.
action to authorize the subcommittee to create a survey and
I
distribute it.
certainly would not be opposed to that, in the least. So.
Is that, are you moving
We'll
that?
call that a motion, yes, indeed.
I'll second.
All right, motion made second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. Okay. Moving to item A of the action agenda, review and act on school committee meeting minutes of Tuesday, February 25th, 2025, and Friday, February 28th, 2025.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous. Item B, acknowledgement of $1,675 Westport Education Foundation grant, WHHS Exchange Club cultural outing to New York City and Boston.
I'll make a motion to approve the two WEF grants, one for $1,675, oh, no, one WEF
Just-
grant
just one.
for the cultural outing of New York and Boston.
I'll second.
Motion made second to acknowledge the grant. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
That's unanimous. Item C, review and act on school choice. Based on the conversation today, I will entertain a motion to table this item.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
That's unanimous. Item D, review and act on proposed graduation requirements. What is the pleasure of the committee?
I'll make a motion to approve the removal of the tech requirement for graduation.
Okay, motion has been made to remove the technology requirement for graduation.
I'll second.
Motion has been seconded. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous.
In
We're gonna
rega-
table the other.
Yeah, in regards to the community service survey, community service, I didn't make a motion because I wasn't sure what the pleasure of the,
I think we were talking about
Committee
tabling,
was-
she was gonna work on it till she has to end the June.
okay, all right.
On the, I'm sorry, which item?
The community service, so do we need the community service? part?
Oh, yeah, yes, I apologize, yeah.
That's
yes.
okay. So I'll make a motion to table the community service requirement of the graduation requirements.
Table until.
You're saying you're tabling the action or pausing
All right, well, I guess,
the? I guess
So I guess we don't need to
we
do
did take
anything.
action on the item, so we don't
we don't need to
technically
do
have act
anything
on the
about
other.
the, okay,
Correct,
all
correct.
right,
So that's all second.
that's fine.
Item, did
We
we,
approved that already. And we already
did that
the
all.
search.
Did it all out.
Yep.
okay, great, that was item A, very good. Oh, we took item E out of order, yes, okay. All right, routine matters, correspondences, and notices, I don't have anything there. The only last thing that I will note, just on the FY '26 budget, is the documents are all online for anyone interested in viewing them. They're all on the school committee website. our webpage within the school department's website. They're listed there, both the presentation that was given to the finance committee and the full budget document that's broken out by line item is all available publicly on our website, as well as the select board meetings where the number was discussed and the select board's recommendation, as well as the finance committee meetings, are all on YouTube. Okay, topics the chair cannot reasonably anticipate 48 hours in advance of the meeting, and on there. With that being said, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made second, is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Meeting's adjourned.